Hi there guys, this tutorial is going to be focusing on taking a drawn element, particularly around type, for sign writing or illustrative type, and using Illustrator's live trace function in order for you to refine your own hand drawn element. Now it will vary, some of you will be more detailed than others in terms of the groundwork. And this is all for the activity where you're going to do a piece of sign writing that will be displayed and photo imposed onto the saw, which is all on Moodle. But for the sake of this, I've just done a very quickly drawn out piece of type, and I'm just going to show you how you take your design and put it into Illustrator, but for Photoshop and Illustrator to clean it up and then be able to try and perfect it as a vector as well. The reason why I'm showing you this is because sometimes, as much as the computer can do for you, it doesn't beat the human hand, and you will be able to be a bit more flexible, a little bit more effective perhaps with your own drawing skills than you would be on a computer. It does vary from person to person. Personally, I've always preferred to draw things out and then take them on and refine them that way. Okay, so I'm just going to show you some three drawings. So this is the first one. This is my initial drawing, just writing out the word mostly in kind of a script way. What I've tried to do is try to kind of follow the line, so you can see overlapping as if it was like a piece of writing I would have done naturally. The next stage was to take that and outline it, so we got rid of all these kind of overlaps. I still had a bit over here, but you can see, in the L curves and the Y and the O to the S, it's all gone. And then the final stage was to we've refined from here to here, and then we're refining to just get a nice solid black outline. Try and have a nice continuous line. I know it's not the neatest line, I just did this quickly. Obviously take your time when you're doing it, but nice solid black outline, no overlaps, and if you need to, again, refine slightly a little bit further, then you can do it at this stage. Rub out the pencil mark and then take a photograph of it on your phone, or you can scan it, depending on what type of equipment you've got with you. What I would suggest is the resolution quality on your phone now tends to be better than any of the scanners that you have lying around. So I would always say go for your phone. However, the risk of taking it in your phone is that you do pick up kind of odd backgrounds. You will also, regardless of whether you scan it or take your phone, need to get it into Photoshop to amend and remove some imperfections that naturally get picked up from the scan bed, or just from the shadows in the background or the lighting that you've had on your phone. So let's just close that down, and what I'm going to do is take my more finalized document, and I'm going to open that in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do immediately is I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'm going to change this name to Refined. Okay, highest quality, and just it means that if you make a mess of this and you accidentally save it, you haven't saved your original one, and you won't have to go back to re-scanning and re-photograph it. Okay, the next thing you need to do, despite the fact that this is black pen on white paper, I need to get rid of all the colour. Now, if you scanned it at grayscale, you wouldn't need to do this because Photoshop would read it as a grayscale document. If you haven't, then you need to go into Image, Mode, and then Grayscale. The reason why we do this is because despite the fact it was black pen on white paper, there were colour pigments within it. It was just naturally there. Now you can see we've just got literally grayscale in it. That helps us for the next stage, which is to try and play around with the levels of black and white within the image to try and make that background as clean and bright as possible, and at the same time make these black lines really pop. So to do that, we go into image and we go into adjustments and we go to levels. I'm just going to move this over the side here. So on our left hand side of this scale we have our black, the right hand side we have our white, and then in the middle we've got the grey. The scale here, this kind of graph, will vary depending on the amount of black and white in the image. It's heavily loaded this side because there's less black and more of the white side. Pure black and pure white, it's saying there is none of. So what we need to do, and it is trial and error, and you'll naturally, the more you do this, the more you'll find the default position easy to work with. We're going to click the black arrow and we're going to slide it down. Now as soon as it starts picking up that graph, you can start to see anything that's dark really turning black. And if I go past this first kind of hump into the next bit, it then starts picking up the greys. Now at this point we've gone too far. We need to have it sitting somewhere within this middle barrier here. The further into it you can go, the better, because what you're going to then do is do the counter, or the opposite of this, by sliding the white along. And again, because we've got no white in the image, we haven't got anything purely there until we slide it in here. Then all the light colours, the grey, is going to start changing to white, and you can already see down here it become almost pure white. The more you slide it along here, the more it will turn white. You'll also notice that as we do it, some of the black outline, the thickness edge to the black, is disappearing. So you have to find that happy balance. If I go even closer, you'll start to see that line breaking up a bit. So again, you want to keep it somewhere within this set range here. I can pick up some elements here of sort of grey shadowing and grey flecks. So I'm going to just try and go a little bit further. That's got rid of some of it, but I know that there's still some there. So the other thing you can do is play around with where the grey middle balance sits. You can slide it more to the black and that will bring more white out. You can slide it more to the white and that will bring more black out. So the area that I highlighted there is the one that I'm turning pure black there or pure white there. It still does have an effect on what you've got, so you do have to find that balance. If you've got an image where it's just completely not working, you're taking a photograph, then there's not really a lot you can do other than try and re-photograph it. Get yourself, in terms of photographing it, make sure that your paper's nice and crisp and white, you're in a well-lit area. I know it's easy to say, but try and avoid casting a shadow whilst you're taking a picture of it by standing above it, because it won't, if you do cast a shadow onto it, it'll obviously play around with it. Okay, while we're still in Photoshop, I'm just going to save that before we do anything else. While we're still in Photoshop, we're going to zoom in and try and tidy up some of these little blemishes. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the eraser tool, and just going to get myself a hard eraser edge and just try and trim some of these bits. Now I'm not too worried about the inside of the lettering. I'll explain why in a minute, but and when we get into Illustrator, but it is more the outside we need to worry about. Reduce the size of the brush if necessary to get into trickier areas. Just take your time with it, no rush. Save as you go. The worst thing you want to do is get right to the end of this and realise you haven't saved it and then the computer crashes. Always save regularly. So now I know that I've done the M, I'm just going to save that. 2 seconds, that's all it takes. If you do find more grey elements to it, then just, like I said before, take your time and just erase them as well. They're not going to cause massive problems. My main focus, as I said, is the outside of it, and that's because when we get into Illustrator we're going to be tracing this effectively, and we want to have a nice smooth outside if we can. I can't see anything else majorly worrying for now. Again, a few more bits of grey there, and you can see when we zoom in, really nice. So what I'm going to do is just another trick that you can do is use the select tool in order to use the select. We want to use the colour range, and if I just move this out of the way, I'm zoomed in so I can see enough of the grey. I'm just going to click and I'm just holding the shift key several times to pick up pigment of the grey. You can see in the preview here it's highlighting a lot of that. If I just click OK and then delete and then just make it the background colour, it gets rid of that as well. Now you might be wondering, well, why didn't you just do that in the beginning? To be honest, there's no reason why you can't do that, but using the levels tool is a more skillful way and a more accurate way of getting it done. Okay, so if you want to, before we take this any further, I'm just going to unlock the background, click OK. Right click or double click, control click, on the icon of the layer and select pixels. You'll see that it's picking up the whole outline there, so you can't really select this image in that way. What you've got to do is select the colour range. If I select all the white, click OK, and then delete. That gets rid of all the white, so we've just got an only black background. Now if I go select pixels, it will select what is pixels on there, which is the black. And the reason why I'm doing this is so I can just make sure that it is pure black. I'm just going to get a brush, I'm just going to make the brush black, I'm going to make it nice and big, and I'm just going to click on it over it just to make sure that it is pure black. The blacker it is, the better. It makes it a lot easier to trace. You can also, if I double click on the layer, if we select stroke, we can increase that. Yeah, basically it's just what Photoshop's doing, is applying a stroke to the pixels we've got. It's very subtle. It's not going to be massive, but it might just add a little bit more of a thickness to it. And if you can do the position, you can change it inside or outside. That is too much. If we just do it on the outside, there, it does become a lot more thicker. So if I just sort of increase that by like 1 pixel, it makes it just a little bit easier to pick all up the elements within it. Okay, let's save that. Okay, now you'll notice that because I got rid of the layers and things like that, it's now asking me to save it as a PSD document. I'm just going to oversave the original, the JPEG that I saved as originally. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is close this down, and you'll see here is on my desktop, and it's time to now take this image into Illustrator. Okay, it asks you, because it's brought it in from Photoshop, do you want to keep maximum compatibility? Well, we've only got one layer here, so it doesn't really matter if you flatten it or do that. Okay, now we're in Illustrator. If you're using Adobe CC, it's called Image Trace, but if you're using anything prior to that, it's called Live Trace. And whenever you select an image, you get the option to Live Trace. Live Trace or Image Trace, whatever you want to call it, was first introduced to Illustrator back in early 2002, 2003, when CS3 was launched. Most people use it to just get pictures off the internet, trace them horribly, and then try and make them fit as graphic artwork. The true function of Live Trace is to easily take your own hand drawings and vectorize them. Because remember, we've been working in Photoshop up to now. This is still a pixel. If I zoom right in, these are pixel images. Illustrator we know is a vector based program, so we won't have these fuzzy outlines, we'll have solid black lines. You could just have taken the original drawing that you did, that you photographed, straight into Illustrator and use the pen tool, because the pen tool is very detailed, very specific, can plot out key points, and you could get a really, really good, clear rendering. We know how to use the pen tool, and some of you will probably be sat there going, oh, I hate the pen tool. The pen tool is probably Illustrator's greatest asset. But what I'm going to do is show you a shortcut. It may not give you the most refined and most perfect results, but Live Trace, or Image Trace, whatever you want to call it, does give you some good results. Okay, so with it selected, I'm just going to click Image Trace. Just quickly show you, you do get some default settings that you can, or preset settings. We're just going to use the default because we've just got colour. I'm going to go Image Trace. Now, you're probably thinking, what happened? What's happened there? So I'm just going to zoom in, undo that, zoom in again, so you can see. Alright, and then press Image Trace. It's now read every line, every pixel, and it has made it into a solid vector line. It's done that the whole way around, and it's also filled the background a colour. This is the point where it's going to start getting complicated, and please bear in mind that if you're not sure of what you're doing, or you've got a bit stuck, it's not the end of the world. You can always go back. What I suggest everyone does at this point is, before they do anything, is they just duplicate the live trace that they've made over here. Just put it over there, because if you do make any catastrophic messes with your design, you've always got that one there and you don't have to go back to the very beginning. Okay, let's save this. I'm just going to call this type live trace. Okay. Now, when we live trace something, we do effectively make it a vector, but you'll notice that I'm selecting this, I'm not getting any outlines apart from this one big box. So how do I know that's a vector? It's because what we need to do is expand it and take it out of live trace mode and take it back into just sort of normal object mode. So we click expand up here, and straight away you'll see that outline appear. Okay, I'm going to just try and attempt to explain to you how this graphic is now being made up. It's by expanding it, it's taken it out of live trace mode, but it's made it a group set of elements, or that make it into a compound path. You've got the background element, you've got the black line element, and then you've got the white infilled area. Okay. We need to get rid of the bits that are useless to us, first of all. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this background. To help illustrate the removal of this, I'm just going to draw a big box, fill it with a colour, any colour, doesn't really matter. Object arrange, send that to the back, so you can see now the white box that lives behind our text. Okay, you can ungroup and go through the system of ungrouping, which can be messy, and because you don't actually see visible results, you may get lost as to where you've done. So what I suggest you do is use our direct selection tool friend over here, the white arrow tool. Now, when you select something with a white arrow tool, it will select the key point of it. Now, if I just click that line on the left-hand side there and press delete, it's deleted the joined line between those two, but it hasn't actually visually deleted anything. If I press it again, the background is gone. All the background is gone, with the exception to anything that is landlocked. So, the counter of the O and this part of the L, the T, Y, and so forth. Yes. We then can start going in and selecting these bits. However, this is where it can get messy. Select that bit and delete, you'll see nothing happens. Select it again, you are deleting everything that's joined up into that, so that's all gone. So In some areas though, like these, where it's just on its own, it's easy. You've got to make sure that you hit in the middle. Don't hit on the side. I'll just show you what happens if you hit the line and do it. Oh, that was a mistake, sorry. If you hit the line and do it, you'll actually be deleting the line. So make sure you hit the middle, smack bang in that middle. Okay? And that way you'll get rid of all the negative points. Now, let's just get rid of that as well at the moment. Okay, so now what we've got, it's still grouped together. It's the black outline and the white infill. Just going to draw a shape over here with a black outline and a white fill. Just increase the stroke, because you'll all be aware that when you select something like this, you get the option to flick between, the fill and the stroke, work with a stroke, to change the colour of that, work with a fill, change the colour of that. This you'll be forgiven to thinking that you could just select that and then do that, but it doesn't work like that, because you'll see now once I've selected it over here, we've got no stroke. Because there is no stroke, even though this is our outline, it isn't actually classed as a stroke in Illustrator because it's an object. This over here, little question mark, means that you've grabbed something that has that's in a group, and it doesn't pick up a colour when you do that. So what we need to do is go Object and Ungroup. Okay, and now we can select the white and the black separately. So if I just move that over here, I can then change that to make that black. This is ungrouped from all these elements. Now, effectively, to me, this could be seen as just rubbish, and I could delete that now. Or I can go back to before I ungrouped, use the same process of delete the white as I did, and then select all this, and it's all nicely grouped together. What my ideal is to keep the outline of all of this and get rid of the inside elements. So if I use the white arrow tool and hit the inside of the black line and then delete, it gives me the outline shape. If I go Object, Arrange, and send that to the back, I've got then the issue of having lost all these. I want the holes to be back, so what I have to do effectively is start using the Pathfinder tool. If I select the two shapes together and then use the intersect, the minus front, sorry, it punches a hole in the side, and it will do that with some of them. And then it's just a case of going around and deleting all these bits over here. Okay, nearly there. The last thing then I can use Illustrator for is to start tweaking some of these points and trying to refine and polish off some of these letters. Let's get rid of that. Let's start off with this M, for example. In the process, what we've done is we've kind of effectively lost a point up here which took this negative space, and this is kind of all blurred in. It's kind of become a bit messy. So what you can do is zoom in, use the white arrow tool, select your anchor point and start tweaking and moving. You have plenty of options really of what you want to do. You might decide, if I use the minus pen tool, you can start deleting anchor points, and then what that does is it where you've got kind of lumpy lines, it does allow you to have a bit more of a straighter, kind of more seamless, more effective line. You can also, if I take this down here for example, play around with the curvature of the line if you're not happy with it. So if I use the convert anchor point tool, I can start playing around with the flow of this bend, or the white arrow tool to move it again, play around with the positioning of it. By doing this you can effectively make lines thicker in parts and thinner, so you're getting a different stress and different angle, and you can get rid of lumpy bits. You can also, if you just think, oh, what a mess I need to sort out over here, this S, it might just be easier to draw a new shape rather than go about deleting points within this. So what I'm just going to do is just quickly use the pen tool to roughly draw like an overlay shape. And okay, yeah, that's fine, that's better than what I wanted. I can then use the pen tool and punch a hole in that so it makes it nicer. You'll also pick up over here that I've where the lines join together. If you want to break the line, you can do. It's just a case of using the cut-in tool or the slicing tool, whichever you want really. I'm just going to use the scissors tool, sorry, not the scissors tool, the knife tool, to just draw a line that divides those two there, and then draw one that divides it over here. If you double click and go into isolation mode, you can delete that bit, and then just press the escape to get out of that, and then just start tweaking, playing around with the lines, trying to smooth it all out. And you can just go on and on and on until you perfect your design and you're happy with it. So although it seems like that we've done a lot and we've had to go through several systems and effects and functions, it is worth getting to hands with it and playing around with it, because then once you've got your final design, you can then make sure you save as you go through, but then you can save that, take that back into Photoshop, and then superimpose it onto what you need to do. Thank you very much.